Say it, my dad growled, pointing his knife at me like I'd just ruined Christmas. My mom's wine glass clinked on the table as she crossed her arms, avoiding my eyes. My cousin Danny sat there with her perfect smile, watching this unfold like dinner theater. I was 17 years old, being forced to apologize for something I never said. Not for something I did wrong, but for something I refused to admit I didn't do. The words they wanted stuck in my throat like poison. Around the table, every face waited for my humiliation, my surrender, my lie disguised as an apology. But what happened next would change everything forever. I heard the metal snap of my fork hitting my plate. That was my only reaction to the demand echoing in the dining room. The sting of betrayal rose behind my eyes as I looked around the table, waiting for someone, anyone, to say, "Wait, maybe we should hear Naomi's side." But they were all waiting for my confession. My humiliation. My Aunt Lila's lips were pressed into a thin line, her eyes cold with hurt. My Uncle Ben stared at his food like the mashed potatoes held the secrets of the universe. And my cousin Danny, she tilted her head with fake concern, playing the role of innocent victim perfectly. My name is Naomi Chen, and I've been the peacekeeper my whole life. You're so mature for your age. You don't cause drama like other teenagers. You're the one we don't have to worry about. What they really meant was simple. I was the one they could silence, sideline, and sacrifice for everyone else's comfort. The quiet daughter who swallowed her words to keep the family happy. The cousin who took blame to avoid conflict. The granddaughter who smiled through gritted teeth because speaking up meant being labeled difficult. But that night, everything was about to change in ways none of us saw coming. 2 days before that dinner, Aunt Lila discovered someone had called her a mean drunk in our family group chat. The message appeared during a heated discussion about holiday plans, dropping like a bomb into our usually polite conversations. Nobody admitted to sending it. The accusation just hung there, waiting for someone to claim it or deflect it. Within hours, somehow, the blame slid directly to me. Quiet Naomi, the cousin who never drinks, never parties, never even curses in front of adults. But according to Danny, I was the one spreading cruel gossip about our aunt behind her back. "I know you didn't say it," Donnie texted me privately that first night. My heart actually lifted, thinking she was going to defend me. Then came the next message. "But everyone thinks you did, and honestly, it's easier this way." I stared at my phone screen, reading those words over and over until they blurred. When I asked what she meant, she sent a laughing emoji, followed by, "Relax. 'Cause, you know they always believe you're the good one anyway. One little mistake won't hurt." Except this wasn't my mistake, and somehow she knew that nobody would believe me over her golden reputation. The family meeting happened the night before dinner. My parents sat me down in our living room like I was being prepped for trial. "Just apologize," my mother said gently, her voice carrying that familiar tone of reasonable disappointment. "Let it go. Be the bigger person here, sweetheart." I looked between them, searching for any hint that they believed me. "But I didn't say it," I whispered, my voice barely audible. My father sighed heavily, rubbing his temples like my honesty was giving him a headache. "That's not the point right now, Naomi. The point is keeping this family together." My mother nodded. Sometimes being right isn't as important as being kind. They made me practice the apology. "Aunt Lila, I'm sorry if anything I said was hurtful or disrespectful." Not, "I'm sorry I said it." Just enough wiggle room to technically avoid lying while still taking responsibility for words that never left my mouth. My stomach churned as I repeated the scripted phrases, each word tasting bitter. My mother corrected my tone twice. "More sincere," she coached. "Remember, she's really hurt." I wanted to scream that I was hurt too, that being blamed for lies was devastating. Instead, I nodded obediently. Because in our house, compliance was the only path to survival. My grandmother arrived early that Sunday, which was unusual. Grandma Rose rarely came to family dinners anymore, claiming her arthritis made the drive difficult. But she walked in with her carved wooden cane and her Sunday pearls, moving slowly but deliberately toward the dining room. When my mother started arranging seats, Grandma specifically asked to sit next to me. "Haven't talked to my granddaughter in too long," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. At the time, I thought it was coincidence. Later, I realized she had planned everything from the moment she heard about the accusation. Right before dinner, my mother insisted on taking a group photo. "Everyone smile," she chirped, holding up her phone like a weapon of mass documentation. "We need to remember these beautiful family moments." Everyone gathered close, arms around shoulders, faces bright with practiced happiness. Everyone smiled except me. I couldn't force it. The fake joy felt like a betrayal of everything I was feeling inside. "Naomi," my mother whispered sharply, "don't ruin this for us." That's when I made a decision. I wasn't going to scream, I wasn't going to cry, I was going to watch, and remember absolutely everything that happened next. The turkey was carved. The wine was poured. Small talk filled the spaces between bites like background music nobody really listened to. My father cleared his throat meaningfully, giving me the look that meant, now or never. My mother offered an encouraging smile, the kind she used when she wanted me to perform for company. I opened my mouth to deliver the rehearsed apology that would make everyone comfortable again. Instead, different words came out. "Can I ask Danny one question first?" The room went quiet so fast I could hear my own heartbeat. My cousin's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Danny recovered quickly, that practiced smile never wavering. "Why would you need to ask me anything?" she said, her voice light but her eyes sharp. I looked straight at her across the table, past the gravy boat and the bread basket, directly into those lying eyes. "Did I actually say those words to you? Or did you just tell everyone I did?" The question hung in the air like smoke. My Aunt Lila's hand froze mid-bite. Uncle Ben stopped chewing entirely. Even my little cousin Marcus looked up from his mashed potato sculpture. For the first time in days, someone was asking for the truth instead of demanding an apology. My mother's voice cut through the silence like a knife. "Naomi, this isn't the time or place for this." My father's contribution was equally helpful. "Just say you're sorry, and let's move on." But Danny leaned back in her chair, eyebrows raised in perfect theatrical shock. "Wow," she said, her voice dripping with wounded innocence. "So now you're calling me a liar? In front of everyone?" The room began to tighten around me like a noose. I felt the familiar pressure to back down, apologize, make everyone comfortable again. That's when my grandmother put her fork down slowly, deliberately, the small clink echoing louder than it should have. Grandma Rose stood up with careful precision, using her cane for balance. Every head turned toward her, conversation stopping mid-sentence. She looked directly at my cousin, with eyes that had seen 8 decades of human behavior. "Danny," she said in her clear, carrying voice, "how old are you now?" Danny blinked, obviously confused by the question. 17, Grandma." My grandmother nodded thoughtfully. 17. Old enough to know that lying is a choice, not an accident. Then she turned those same sharp eyes to me. "Naomi, did you say those words about your aunt?" The room held its breath. I said it with no emotion, no drama, just simple truth. No. 1 word. 2 letters, the most honest thing I'd said all week. My grandmother's gaze swept back to my parents, then to my aunt and uncle, finally landing on Danny again. "So let me understand this correctly," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had raised 5 children and buried 2 husbands. "Are we in the business of disciplining honest children for other people's lies? Or are we rewarding liars because it's more convenient?" Nobody answered. The silence stretched until it became uncomfortable for everyone except her. Dinner continued, but the atmosphere had shifted completely. Conversations were quieter, more careful. Nobody looked directly at me anymore, but nobody looked at my grandmother either. My cousin suddenly remembered she had homework to finish and needed to leave early. My aunt and uncle began discussing their own departure before dessert was even served. My parents moved around the kitchen, cleaning up with mechanical precision, their usual chatter replaced by the clatter of dishes and the weight of unspoken words. That night, after everyone left, my mother finally spoke. "You embarrassed this entire family tonight." I said nothing back. That night, I started writing everything down. Not just what happened at dinner, but everything I could remember from the past few years. Every time I was made to take blame for things I didn't do. Every occasion when Danny's lies were easier to accept than my truth. Every moment my parents chose keeping peace over protecting me. I filled 12 pages in my journal before my hand cramped. I wasn't writing from anger anymore. I was documenting patterns, building a case, creating a record of the truth nobody seemed interested in hearing. Suddenly, I started noticing things I'd been trained to ignore. The way my mother automatically defended Danny's behavior as just joking around or teenager stuff. The way my father laughed uncomfortably when I mentioned feeling invisible in my own family. The way they both blamed me for being too sensitive whenever I pointed out unfairness. I wasn't overreacting to isolated incidents. I was finally seeing a system designed to make me doubt my own reality. A family structure that required my silence to function smoothly. And I was tired of being the foundation everyone else stood on. 3 days after the dinner, my phone rang. Grandma Rose's number appeared on the screen. "You've always been too kind to people who didn't deserve it," she said without preamble. Her voice sounded different, sharper, more determined. "Your mother was the same way at your age. Took me too long to teach her to stand up for herself." Then she said something that surprised me. "Start keeping records, sweetheart. Screenshots, messages, everything. Your word against theirs isn't enough anymore." I didn't understand what she meant then, but I soon would learn that she had a plan forming. Following my grandmother's advice, I went back through months of family group chat messages. I screenshotted everything relevant, especially the parts where Danny made snide comments about me that everyone laughed off as harmless teasing. Comments about my appearance, my grades, my lack of social life. Things that seemed small individually, but created a clear pattern when viewed together. I printed everything out, organizing it by date and topic. When my grandmother asked for copies during her next visit, I handed her a thick folder. She flipped through it with grim satisfaction. "Perfect," she said. "Now we build your case." My grandmother scheduled an appointment with Dr. Martinez, a family counselor she'd heard good things about. She insisted I come with her, claiming she needed help understanding modern family dynamics. During the session, she explained everything that had been happening, presenting my documentation like evidence in a trial. Dr. Martinez listened carefully, asking thoughtful questions about patterns and responses. Finally, she spoke the words I'd never heard applied to my situation. "What you're describing is emotional scapegoating." She looked directly at me. "And sweetheart, you are absolutely not crazy for feeling confused and hurt by this treatment." 2 weeks later, my parents announced another family dinner for the following Sunday. The invitation felt different this time. More formal, more like damage control than genuine family bonding. My grandmother agreed to attend again, which raised some eyebrows since she'd been avoiding family gatherings for months. She arrived carrying the same leather purse she'd brought to the counseling session, along with a manila folder that she placed beside her plate. My cousin Danny arrived 20 minutes late, apologizing with her usual charm. Everyone smiled too hard and spoke too carefully, like we were all walking on fresh ice. After the blessing was said and plates were filled, my grandmother opened her folder with deliberate ceremony. Group chat screenshots lay neatly organized beside printed text conversations and handwritten notes from my journal. She handed the first stack to my Aunt Lila. "This is the pattern," she said calmly, her voice carrying absolute authority. "Naomi didn't lie about anything. She's been systematically lied about. And this family has been systematically protecting the wrong person." The papers rustled as they were passed around the table. Faces changed as people read. The room grew quiet, except for the sound of turning pages. My aunt studied the messages carefully, her expression shifting from confusion to recognition to something darker. She looked up at Danny, who had gone pale beside her plate of untouched food. "What is this?" she asked her daughter quietly. Danny's mouth opened and closed without sound. My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Why are we bringing all this up again? Can't we just move forward?" My grandmother fixed him with a stare that could have frozen fire. "Because, Thomas, if Naomi had done to Danny what Danny did to her, you would have grounded your daughter for months. Instead, you made her apologize for being victimized." Nobody could argue with that logic. The aftermath unfolded slowly, like dominoes falling in careful sequence. My aunt had a private conversation with Danny that evening, though I never learned the details. My uncle called my father to discuss family accountability in a conversation that lasted over an hour. Danny stopped coming to family gatherings for several weeks. The group chat went mysteriously quiet, as if everyone was afraid their words would be used as evidence later. And my parents? They moved around me carefully for days, like they were afraid I might document their reactions too. The balance of power in our family had shifted, and everyone could feel it. 3 days after that final dinner, my mother came to my room without knocking. She looked different, smaller somehow. Her usual makeup was missing, and her smile was nowhere to be found. She sat on the edge of my bed like she was asking permission to be there. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, the words barely audible. "We failed you. I failed you." Her voice cracked slightly. I was so focused on keeping everyone happy that I forgot to protect my own daughter. My father never came to apologize directly. Danny never said a word to me about any of it. But from that day forward, nobody asked me to be the bigger person. And they definitely never asked me to lie. If you've ever been blamed just to keep someone else comfortable, tell me in the comments. Would you have stayed quiet, or would you have done what I did?